Have you ever noticed those bunny symbols on products that you find in your local supermarket? Many people don't. This bunny symbol is a cruelty-free label, one that is given to a product that steers clear of animal testing for production purposes.
Animal testing refers to the use of animals in scientific experiments to gain insights into human biology, test the safety and efficiency of new drugs, test new medications, and gather data for various studies. The term animal testing does refer to the experiments or procedures that are performed on live animals. There are many procedures, for example, research into basic biology and diseases, assessing the effectiveness of new medical products, and etc.
According to Andrew Rowan, Senior Vice President of the Humane Society of the United States, over the last 25 years, the number of animals used in scientific research has declined by approximately 50%, and an estimated 18 million animals are still used for research each year.
According to Beyond the first known use of animal testing was in 500 BC. Ancient Greek physicians and scientists would conduct experiments with animals. The use of animal research and testing became more popular in the 19th and 20th centuries when companies and researchers started using animal research to understand biology, toxicology, and physiology of the living organisms. Animal testing is still being used in many companies. However, it is primarily used in cosmetic and pharmaceutical industries. Our economy is surrounded by millions of brands. We, as consumers, blindly buy products from dozens of companies, not knowing anything about the manufacturing of the product, nor the ethical standards and practices of the company. For example, many brands falsely list themselves as a cruelty-free brand, but they could have manufactured their product in China, where animal testing is required by law. According to Cruelty Free Kitty, an organization that discusses cruelty-free brands, 44 out of the 50th largest cosmetic brands are not cruelty-free. To understand the public's acknowledgement and opinion of animal testing, we sent out a poll to answer a few of our questions. Using social media such as Instagram and Nextdoor to send out the poll, it amassed over 100 responses. Looking at the question, which of these companies have you used products from, we included the names of a few brands and companies that still use animal testing. Every person who answered the poll had used a product from at least one of the companies listed. The most popular companies that were selected were Clorox, Johnson & Johnson, and L'Oreal. Almost all the companies are cosmetic brands. To dive deeper into animal research with cosmetic companies, we looked at information on the website of the Humane Society of the United States. We gained information on the cosmetic tests performed on animals. Skin and eye irritation tests where chemicals are rubbed onto the shaved skin or dripped into the eyes of restrained rabbits. Tests that deliver doses of chemical substances to mice through repeated force feeding. These tests last weeks or months so researchers can look for signs of general illness or specific health hazards such as cancer or birth defects. Widely condemned illegal dose tests, in which rats are forced to swallow large amounts of chemicals to determine the doses that cause death. These animals receive no pain relief. We asked the public if they knew that all these companies test on animals. The results of this question were expected. Only about 18% of people knew that some, if not all, of these companies use animal testing. As you can see, so many companies regularly use animal testing, but the public is not informed about their practices at all. To follow up, we asked the question, will you continue to buy products from these companies, knowing that they have been tested on animals? The results of this question shocked us. Each answer choice was selected almost equally, whereas we expected most people to say no, almost 42% of people said yes.
As this poll itself shows, animal testing is a highly controversial topic. The guidelines and regulations for animal testing are constantly changing in today's world. There are two main acts that come into play. The Animal Welfare Act of 1996 is the only legal protection for animals, but it leaves a lot out. It does not cover a majority of test animals such as mice and rats, and it only mandates the minimum living standards, nothing about the animals' living conditions or procedures that they may go through. The U.S. Department of Agriculture conducts random inspections, and if they find violations of this act, they can assess monetary penalties. The Alternative Methods Authorization Act is currently pending in Congress, but if passed, it will permanently establish a committee that will be responsible for creating the standards for the validation and acceptance of alternative methods to animal research. With these bills passing, some companies have found it difficult to continue testing processes through animals, which introduces the idea of alternative methods. Alternative methods can be beneficial when it comes to protecting animals, but can also be costly. Main alternative strategies include rational drug design, computer technology such as reach-across and TopCat, organs-on-chips technology, and test skin. The debate whether these methods are accurate is still ongoing today.
To get more insight on animal testing, we interviewed the Executive Director of Americans for Medical Progress. AMP is a nonprofit group that emphasizes the important role of animal testing and research in the medical field. They offer many training programs and awareness days to advocate for the ethical use of animals in the advancement of medicine. They showed to be a group that is very forward about awareness and honesty in animal testing for research. Here is what she said.
I actually got into the field of biomedical research involving animals by accident. I go back to school to become a licensed veterinary technician. So as part of that program, I had to do an externship. My director said, "You'll have to work with the research animals." And I was horrified because I had lots of misconceptions about what that looked like, what it meant. So I went to the internship and I could not believe how amazing the animals were, what a difference they were making in advancing medicine and science to help people and animals, and how caring everybody who worked with the animals were. So,
as she has worked in the medical field and stands for animal testing, she gave us information on the reality of animal testing in the biomedical field. She has a very clear standpoint on what can be considered ethical animal testing versus unethical.
Unethical animal testing would be something that an animal was involved in where you don't need an animal. So animals are only involved in research when they're necessary. So there are other ways of conducting research, which is always important to use those technologies before you involve an actual animal into a study. And then I mentioned animal research. That's really a big part of science where scientists are studying just the world around us. You know, how do our bodies work? How does a disease make you sick? How can we do some interventions to fix that disease?
While animal testing does occur unethically, there are still legal guidelines that bind companies to humane practices. We asked her to elaborate on how her company follows these guidelines.
Well, our organization doesn't actually conduct research. We work with universities, hospitals, research institutes, pharmaceutical companies, lots of different commercial breeders that breed animals for research, and then a bunch of other groups. So way back when, a scientist would study an animal, and an animal would just be in a cage. You know, now animals are provided with environments that allow them to exhibit their species-specific behavior. So, and then if you're a monkey, another small part of research, but very important part, those animals get lots of stimulation. They get puzzle feeders and special kinds of treats and popcorn. In some cases, places to climb. They also get to hang out with other monkeys because they're also social animals and things like research because of what we've learned. And good animal welfare equals good science. So you need to make sure the animals are happy and healthy.
To this, we asked her personally why she felt animal testing was necessary. She talked about how at the moment, it was the most accurate method of testing that the industry has available. Furthermore, she directed us towards their website, which features specific information about how it works. Surprisingly, different species can also come in handy, as their genetic abilities can be applied in human medicine too. To back up her previous statement on her group's ethics, we found a page talking about who cares for the animals. It says that researchers also keep veterinarians in tests. These are dedicated professionals whose job is to ensure that laboratory animals receive the highest quality of care. Without animal testing, we would be falling behind on essential knowledge on the physiology of animals. At the end, it can be used to either benefit the species that is tested on or another that needs it. Animal testing is used in many different fields, so we asked for her stance on the usage of animal testing in other fields. She notes that the cosmetic industry has done a great job with creating alternative testing methods, which is great since it is debated that it might not be as ethically necessary to kill animals for makeup rather than for long-term cures. She ended off by saying that no product is truly no animal testing. There are always ingredients within it that have been previously tested on. However, that's a good thing because it shows that animal testing has permanent results and therefore won't have to be retested. Hearing from an expert gives us the facts of animal testing in the lab. Here are more opinions of students and teachers at Green Level High School.
I do believe that it is helpful in determining whether or not it's harmless for people because, like I said, our biology is so similar to them. So when we're testing on them, it's basically like we're testing on humans without having to involve humans.
And then why do you think it hasn't been replaced? There's no perfect replacement yet. Nothing that has all the body systems as a human.
If we were to use that computer model, there's more math into that, whereas like when you're testing on humans and animals, that's more science-based. And so it would be really hard to try to replicate that using a computer generation or like human tissues that could possibly be dying or things like that. So I do agree with the surgical procedures and like creating antibiotics and things like that, but I would not say for makeup or perfume or shampoos or things like that, just because those are luxuries that humans have and they're not really something that we need, whereas you need antibiotics to keep people healthy. And so I would say in medicine it's appropriate, but not in those other fields.
I'd say generally I feel like there's a stigma around it where it's almost been criminalized in a way that if people are buying a product that's tested on animals, like they're making a poor ethical decision. A lot of cosmetic products that are tested on animals tend to be what's more affordable. companies that are not testing on animals have access to, the more expensive ways to test. So to assume or expect that everyone purchases products that are more expensive to me just isn't fair.
With makeup and things like that, it's like very expensive to buy like cruelty-free, and like I'm just like,
We have created a poll where it has 4 scenarios asking Wake County high schoolers to see when to use animal testing and to see if it is needed in the scenario.
Here is scenario 1. We can see here that they use animals for their cosmetics, but they have found results that could save human lives through medical research. They are now trying to figure out whether or not they should continue testing on the animals. When we've asked the Wake County high schoolers, 52.9% of them have answered yes, while 47.1% of them have said no. Now we have scenario 4. We can see here that a healthcare uses animals to test for their medicine to give to people. They were wondering if they could use the animals for their medical research if the medical research leads to a better understanding of fundamental biological process. Most of the Wake County high schoolers that we've asked, 70.6% of them think animal testing is appropriate, while 29.4% of them have said no.
While there are students and teachers who think that animal testing is necessary, even though in some cases it's unethical, no one looks into the psychological problems that they develop during and after experimentation. According to the Humane Society of the United States, beagles are one of the most used animals in animal experimentation. But in the labs, they are often kept in steel cages with little room to move around in. They aren't given any sort of comfort, such as toys or bedding. This causes the beagles to become lonely and anxious, as they are often left feeling touch-starved. Many of these beagles are left traumatized and continue to harbor these memories even after experimentation. We also interviewed Gail Thompson, the NC State Director of HSUS, who further elaborated on this topic. But others also point out that animal testing may not be the best method to find cures or vaccines for other diseases in the medical field. Aisha Akhtar, a neurologist and preventative medicine specialist, does a great job in a research study. According to Akhtar's research, there are 3 major conditions which show why animal testing isn't reliable enough for the study of human health. These are the effects of lab environments and other variables unstudied outcomes, disparities between animal models of disease and human disease, and differences in species physiology and genetics. Each of these major conditions are backed up on how this could affect us in the end. The effects of lab environments can have negative effects, as changes in hormonal levels or stressors in the body can cause changes in the data. The Humane Society of the United States created a short film called Save Ralph. In this film, we are taken through the journey of a tested animal named Ralph. And at the end of the film, we see this. This scene shows a scientist forcefully grabbing his eye and injecting something into it. While this film was created for animals in cosmetic testing, grabbing an animal forcefully or inflicting harm on the animal can cause a spike or create fluctuations in the animal's hormones, which can further skew the data. However, this is just one example, but this happens every single day to many of the animals who are in actual testing labs. The second major condition is that human diseases are typically induced in animals artificially, but the complexity of human diseases is much higher than animal diseases. An example of this are human strokes. In a past study that was being researched, the scientists were actually able to find one of the most promising treatments using replications of animal strokes. However, the drug failed in the clinical trials. And for the third major condition, animals differ in physiology, behavior, pharmacokinetics, and genetics. This means that not all information that is gathered from animal testing on animals may help in even finding a vaccine or a cure for a specific disease.
While there are many perspectives as to why animal testing is unproductive and harmful, lots of success has been found from this testing method. Some of these benefits include the development of medicinals like sulfonamides, life support systems for premature infants, and medical breakthroughs. Even medical benefits for the animals stem from these testing methods, such as surgical procedures to treat joint and ligament problems in animals, to transplant organs, and to implant pacemakers. Many vaccines have also been developed through animal testing, the main ones being polio, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, and transplantation. These have been produced through the use of animals such as rhesus monkeys, cats, and more. The impact is quite significant. More than 30,000 Americans are alive today due to transplantation testing alone.
To summarize, we conclude that animal experimentation is needed, but only in the medical industry. Cosmetic animal testing should be banned. As seen in the poll and interviews that are conducted, many people believe that animal testing in the cosmetic industry is unnecessary, as many cosmetics are more wants than needs. However, many do state that animal research in the medical industry has helped and continues to help develop life-saving drugs and treatments benefiting both humans and animals. While advocating for implementing and/or continuing stricter ethical standards for animals used in medical research, it is acknowledged that in the cosmetics industry, alternative methods can be implemented. Animal testing in the medical industry has and will continue to help us learn, grow, and ultimately save lives.